Welcome back to those of you who've been at the last three presentations, and welcome to people who are new to the presentations today. So I'm Chrissy Williams. I'm the Program Leader for the Natural Environment Recovery Program. I'm based at Environment Canterbury, but the position is a partnership position with the organisations you see in that slide. So this afternoon we're going to have a number of presentations on the Heathcote River, or Pawaho. So today you can see those speakers. I'll introduce them as we come to them. Just remind you that the NERP, the Natural Environment Recovery Program, is part of the recovery strategy for Greater Christchurch, and there are the goals around the natural environment and that. And today we're looking at the one around the function of waterways and wetlands and biodiversity. In the NERP, we have a number of projects within the NERP, and there's a number that we're covering by looking at the Heathcote today. Just to set the scene, remind you about the catchment for the Heathcote. So it's distinguished from the catchment of the Avon or Takaro and the Horsehall to the southwest. So it is a large catchment. It's a very urban catchment, but it drains the Port Hills as well. And Belinda will let you know some of the issues around that and sedimentation. And I've just mapped a few of the things that we know are happening, or I know are happening on the Heathcote. But on the wall onto the left of the screen, we have a map of the Heathcote, and there's some stickies beside it. And so if we're missing some activities or projects or groups that you know are working on the Heathcote River, we'd really like to know about those. So we're just doing a cross-section of them today. So we have the Kashmir Stream Care Group speaking today. We have the Christchurch West Melton Zone Committee, so they have a look right across the river. We have Helene Mortner from the Spraden Heathcote Community Board, and again they're looking right across the river. So those are some of the things that I'm aware of. They're all different groups and projects, some of them small, some of them big, some of them catchment-wide, some of them quite specific. So I'll introduce Belinda Margetts, who's from the Christchurch City Council. She's an ecologist. She's going to introduce the river and the ecological condition of it and talk about sediment. So I'll leave it to you, Belinda.
Okay, so today I just wanted to give you a little bit of background about the Heathcote River, just to put it into context for you. And then there's some questions that I'm hoping to answer with this presentation. What is the current state of the Heathcote River? What are the effects of the earthquakes on the river? And has the river recovered since the earthquakes? And what future works are planned in terms of the recovery of the river? And today my talk's going to be focusing on water quality and aquatic ecology. So you can see another picture here of the Heathcote catchment, which is nestled between the Avon River catchment and the Horsehall River catchment. So the Heathcote is spring-fed, which is like most of our waterways in Christchurch. And there are a range of different land uses within the catchment. There's residential, commercial, industrial and rural. But also encompassed in the catchment is the Port Hills. And that in the Port Hills there's quite erodible lower soils, which contributes to some of the issues we have with sediment in the river. So there's three main tributaries, but many more, in the Heathcote catchment: Curlett's Road Stream, Hayton's Stream, which is sort of in the industrial, commercial areas, and Kashmir Stream. And so the catchment is subject to a number of numerous inputs from stormwater and to other discharges as well. And some of the inputs are also historical. So the Heathcote River has been subjected since Europeans came here to quite a lot of sort of discharges around the Woolston area. So the current state in terms of water quality for the river, our council monitors 14 sites monthly within the Heathcote catchment, and we use that data to write annual monitoring reports that we use for our consenting purposes. So this data shows that the water quality is generally poor within the Heathcote River and doesn't meet some of the guideline levels. But this is typical of urban waterways both within New Zealand and internationally, and is often referred to as the urban stream syndrome. But in saying that, the Heathcote is quite easily the catchment with the worst water quality within Christchurch. The tributaries are particularly poor: Curlett's Road Stream and Hayton's Stream, and then also Kashmir Stream. It has a high value, but it also contributes, along with other hill waterways, a bit of sediment to the Heathcote main stem. So the contaminants of particular concern are zinc, which can have toxic effects on biota, and sediment, which can have obvious aesthetic effects that you can see when it rains, but also can do things like stop photosynthesis of plants in the waterway. It can affect biota by smothering their food and their habitat. And then sediment also can have contaminants attached to it, like metals, so introducing them into the waterways can also introduce other contaminants. We also have issues with nitrogen. The levels are higher in the upper catchment and they decrease downstream. We think that might be potentially due to input in the springs from high groundwater levels. Phosphorus is also an issue, pathogens as well. This doesn't all come from where you might think it comes from. It seems to be from our studies to come predominantly from dogs and waterfowl. And then also the tributaries have quite low oxygen levels, potentially due to that lower water quality and the lower water levels within the tributaries. So it's not all bad. We have looked at trends since we've started monitoring regularly since 2007, and it looks like the catchment is generally improving. So Curlet Stream in particular, copper and zinc appear to be decreasing, and then throughout the catchment, phosphorus, sediment, ammonia and nitrogen look like they're decreasing. So what were the effects of the earthquakes on water quality? One of the most obvious ones was sediment. So sediment was discharged to the waterways, both from runoff from roads, where there was obviously a lot of sediment, but then also from liquefaction directly in the waterways. So you can see this picture here shows quite bad liquefaction. There were also, as we know, some wastewater discharges during the earthquakes. Not so much in the Heathcote as there was in the Avon, but this introduces some contaminants like ammonia, which can have toxic effects, pathogens, which can affect contact recreation, and they all help contribute to low oxygen levels. So in terms of recovery, we haven't done a detailed study on the Heathcote River water quality, but we have on the Avon to look at what the effects of the earthquake were. And we found that there were peaks in those contaminants, ammonia and pathogen, and there were low oxygen levels. But now the system seems to have recovered. So it's likely the same that that's happened in the Heathcote. But keeping in mind that's because the water quality was poor beforehand as well, so it's reduced back down to those levels. But there's still potentially sediment coming in due to the rebuild that's going on. So in-stream habitat, there was a study done in 2010 across a range of different sites in the Heathcote, which looked at in-stream habitat. And we're actually doing another survey now looking at the aquatic ecology of the catchment, which we do every 5 years. But the 2010 study showed that the habitat quality was generally poor. In terms of the effects of the earthquake, obvious effects were an increase in sediment depth, but then there were also changes in stream morphology, so like the banks and channels. So this picture here shows an example of how the channel changed in places. And there were also effects on inanga spawning sites, but it should be noted that the historical sites, Steamwharf Stream and Heathcote River at Woolston Park, were already struggling, but the earthquakes have made them worse. In terms of recovery, we've been doing lots of stream works and sediment removal, but this is still ongoing. So what about the animals in the stream? Despite the poor water quality and habitat quality, we actually have some really interesting species in our streams. We have a number of threatened species, so inanga, longfin eel, and bluegill bully, and the freshwater coda, freshwater crayfish. And we also have one species, a giant bully, which is uncommon in the ecological district. Again, this is largely based on our 2010 study, so we'll be redoing that this year. In terms of effects of the earthquakes, there's been some studies done mostly in the Avon that have looked on what effects there were on fish and aquatic insects, and it was found that there were no lasting effects. I must say at the end of my presentation I've got a reference list, so if people want these specific studies you can just go to that list and have a read through. There was one fish study done in the Heathcote which showed that only bluegill bullies were affected, and that's not surprising because bluegill bullies have quite specialist habitat. They like the faster flowing sort of cobble habitat. So we'll see what the recovery is like with this study we're doing at the moment. And then we have some pre-earthquake wastewater effect studies that have been done that help us understand the effects of the earthquake as well, and it showed that there was little effect on fish and aquatic insects. But these studies all need to be qualified by the fact that it's largely because these were sporadic and short-term discharges, and some of these were diluted, so wastewater potentially diluted in the pipes by groundwater and stormwater, and then all discharges potentially in the river. And the big cruncher is that we have to remember that the water quality and habitat was already poor, and so there was few sensitive species, so there were less sensitive species there to be affected, so it might have had greater effects if we'd been in a pristine environment. So has the river recovered? Well, in my opinion, it's partly recovered. We still have some recovery works we need to do around sediment, and we still need to work on our wastewater overflows. Although they're getting better, we're working on a program to hopefully get them back to normal within the next couple of years. So what future works are planned? We have lots of sediment removal works planned. We have a land drainage recovery program which removes sediment mostly for flooding purposes. But then we've also got some other projects that we're potentially looking at which will hopefully remove sediment to a higher level for an ecological value, to get in all the nooks and crannies basically and make that habitat better. So one project we're potentially looking at is Steamwolf Stream, and that's hopefully in conjunction with ECAN and the Christchurch West Mountain Zone Committee. So all of these projects align with the goals of the NERP that Chrissy was talking about. We also have other non-recovery work. Our big one is the Heathcote Surface Water Management Plan, which is basically looking at our mitigation of stormwater in the catchment and getting that consented with our global comprehensive consent. So that will look at improving the water quality from stormwater. And we also have other stream enhancement projects. One we'd like to look at is Steamwolf Stream. So there's with the old Inanga spawning site there, looking at if we can not only remove the sediment, but do some planting, some other things to enhance that habitat. And then I also think there's better overall management practices we can do as a community to help improve the water quality and ecology of the river. So with those thoughts in mind, I've just got some ideas up there of how you might, as a community, work together to do things a little bit differently to improve the water quality and ecology. Thank you very much.
Kia ora tātou. I thought I'd start with a brief overview of the Canterbury Water Management Strategy and the fact that as part of that, the whole of the province has been divided into 10 zones, and the Christchurch West Milton Zone is the smallest of those, with a particular set of problems, of course. Now, I'm a community rep on the zone committee, and that's a fundamental principle of the water management strategy, that each zone committee should have a strong community voice. I think that is a very important and good proposition. Now, the first thing that a zone committee has to do really is to prepare one of these, a zone implementation plan. There's a lot of work goes into that, and we have got 5 copies over there on the table. Hopefully the demand will exceed the supply. If it does, I have copied off 20 of the executive summary in there. Now, within the implementation plan, we identified 5 issues, still talking of course zone-wide. The first is groundwater quality. Well, that's pretty much a no-brainer, of course. The secondly, that the waterways should be enhanced for recreational purposes. There should be an improvement to water quality and flows. The ecosystems of the surface waters should be enhanced where they've been degraded, which is pretty well everywhere. And finally, that water should be used more efficiently. Again, that's a no-brainer. So those are the 5 issues, and then we identified 5 principles, which are kaitiakitanga, very fundamental, better integration and cooperation between the various agencies which are working within our zone, that any we have an opportunity with the earthquake recovery process to actually have some enhancements of our waterways, and so we're going to keep a careful eye on that. And again, very fundamentally, to involve local people wherever possible. As I said, it's an important principle of the water management strategy as a whole that there be community reps on the zone committees. But within each zone, it's also important to get more people involved and interacting with us and working on particular issues of interest to them. The fourth principle was we need better flood management strategy. We're not actually involved in flood management itself, but we're keeping an eye on flood management to make sure that wherever possible it will enhance the surface waters to improve the waterways. Now, we don't, as a committee, get involved very much in actually working on projects in the river. We will be relying largely on other people or other agencies or other community groups to do that kind of thing, and we will be supportive of that wherever we can. We have almost no executive ability. I mean, I am appointed, I'm not elected, so we cannot be responsible for spending large chunks of public money. However, as for every zone committee, we have each year $100,000, which we designate for what are called immediate steps programs, and an individual or a group can put forward a proposition to us, and provided it is well founded and fits within our zone implementation plan, we will consider it very seriously. So that, as I say, is it's a sort of a two-step process, from the Canterbury Water Management Strategy to the Zone Committee, and from the Zone Committee further to the community. And that's all that I want to say. I'll hand over to Matt now.
Tēnā koutou katoa, he kaimahi o e te kone he rā tai ao ki Waitaha, ko Matthew Ross ahoy. I'm Matthew Ross from Environment Canterbury. I'm here to help you share the actions, the story of the Zone Committee, rather than talking on behalf of Environment Canterbury. The Zone Committee is really clear that in order to change the status quo of the waterways within the zone, yes, we need to make sure we've got effective regulation, and yes, the councils have responsibilities and programs of work that they undertake, but actually every land user and land owner needs to consider the impact that their activities are having on water quality. It's the same in the rural areas as it is in the urban area. What we do on the land affects the waterways. But in making the recommendations to councils 18 months, 2 years ago that Hugh held up in that ZIP document, the committee's taken a step back and said, yep, ECAN, City Council have their regulatory processes happening, and we're confident that those councils will take on the advice that we've offered. To get a step change in the status quo, we need to do more. The committee isn't going to be able to do everything by itself, and so what they're focusing on is working with business and working with community to try and get more action, not strategy and plans, but more action to happen. A key gap that they see in what we've currently got is there's a whole load of good ideas out there in the wider community, but often it gets to a kind of a brick wall because there isn't funding, there isn't somebody who's already kind of maybe got the digger to do that work or the plant ready to stick in the ground. And so the Zone Committee believes that actually we've got to get a group, a core project team together, somebody who's in a business role, somebody from the council, somebody who understands the community, to try and pick up projects to make them happen, get them off the drawing board and actually making an improvement in reality. And something like the Spraden Heathcote Community Board has some good ideas, and the Zone Committee is working with them. Hopefully you'll see Zone Committee fingerprints throughout everything here. They actually believe we have to target hotspot catchments, those catchments that have got the worst footprint in terms of water quality. So they're working with the Kashmir Stream Care Group to help make what that local community has articulated as the challenges and the opportunities happen by bridging the gap to councils and helping work with the local landowners. Hayton Stream is a particular problem catchment, as you heard from Belinda, and the Zone Committee has just recently had a public commitment from Ravensdown to work with the Zone Committee around implementing the Canterbury Water Management Strategy. Stormwater is the critical barrier to success in the zone, so that's the wider kind of Christchurch area, and the Zone Committee has worked with Christchurch City Council to help get the bylaw that manages what you can and can't do around the stormwater network, to help it to be rewritten in a way that provides a mechanism to help landowners to kind of improve their performance. They're also talking to the City Council about collaborative. Yes, the city has a network, but what goes into the network influences what comes out. What if the people at the top of the network change their performance so that they put less in and what goes in is a better quality? What does that mean for the cost and the effectiveness of the ratepayers network? They believe that, yep, some of those tools that are used in the regulatory framework, like guidelines about the way that we manage sediment control, need to be better, and they'll be providing advice to the ECAN commissioners in April 2016 about how those guidelines can be made better or more fit for purpose for those soils that we've got on the Port Hills. They're also working with a local landowner, University of Canterbury, the Stream Care Group, to try and get a project to test those techniques in practice in a location in the catchment. So rather than pulling over here what Auckland's done or way over here from Napier, what does it mean for the Port Hills and how do we turn that into the best practice to help get that step change? They want to, they've asked Environment Canterbury staff to go and help talk to the agricultural landowners in the area. They're a particular group. Empowering the local community. They actually asked Environment Canterbury to provide support to the Kashmir Stream Care Group to help get them to a position where they, as local people, were able to say, these are the challenges and here we think are the solutions. The Zone Committee is also kind of pretty clear that the overarching sediment kind of challenge within the Heathcote catchment does need some significant new intervention, whether that's a wetland, whether it's a series of small projects, but it needs that step change. That won't just be councils. That will need to be the landowners, the wider community, the regulator, and the councils. So the Zone Committee isn't necessarily doing any of these. They might be out there to help plant something, but what they're actually saying to councils, to business, with the wider community, how do we get that step change? If we focus on doing some things well that are crucial in getting that step change, then in 5 years' time, we'll hopefully be able to report that we're actually made progress to those longer term goals that the wider community has told the Zone Committee are important. Kia ora koutou.
So now we have Dave West from the Kashmir Stream Care Group. So this group has existed for quite a long time, but it's reinvigorated itself post-earthquake, and Dave is one of the members of that group. So he'll talk about what they're doing. So remember, the Kashmir Stream is in the upper catchment. It feeds into the Heathcote River, and the confluence with the Heathcote is around Hoonhay Road.
Thank you. So good afternoon. So as introduced, I'm Dave West, one of the Type 5 of the Kashmir Stream Care Group. So without further ado, this is a stripped down presentation that we gave to the Zone Committee. So sorry to Matthew and Hugh have already heard. There are some new pictures though, so just bear with me. So just quickly touch on who the Stream Care Group is, what we think are the key issues for the catchment, and what we've done to date. So that's pretty much the outline. So the Kashmir Stream Care Group, the committee is led by Ken Rouse. So Ken's a red zone refugee, so the red zone's loss is our gain. So that reinvigoration largely should be, the credit should be put at Ken's door. The rest of us, so Gordon's the longest standing member, and some of the data I'll show later he's collected. Shelley, obviously principal of EOS, and Robin and myself work for DOC, but this is not our day job. Oh, and yeah, we've got an increasing number of community members on our email list, and obviously we're working with the guides, the Kashmir High School, etc. So that's the catchment of the Kashmir stream, sort of hotspot actually. That's something I didn't realise we were called, but thanks Matthew, I think. It's quite an altered catchment, but it encompasses Port Hills and then a whole lot of flat land out here. Was once a wetland probably, particularly the flat stuff obviously, which has now been, a lot of artificial drains are cut through it. So formation was probably Gordon sort of around 2008 with Gordon and co. There was an early action plan, went into hiatus around the earthquakes, and then from 2013 we've been trying to get organised, and I'll talk a bit more about what we've been doing. So this is the revised action plan. One of the first things we did with Shelley and Imogen and ECAN's help was collate some of these key goals around obviously looking after the stream itself, but also maintaining ourselves as a viable group, and we acknowledge that's a bit of a challenge with all of us, quite a few of us being part-timers. And then just to communicate and get the rest of the community to appreciate the Kashmir stream like we do. So, key issues for the catchment: sediment and more sediment. Poor rural land use practices. It's not that big a catchment in New Zealand scale, but I'm amazed we're still finding out things about it and things that are going wrong on the catchment that until you actually walk the streams, walk the drains, you don't notice. I'll show you some pictures of that. In-stream cleaning. I realise we have to move the water out of our streams, but it'd be nice to leave some vegetation in there for the animals to live in. So just an example of that. Belinda's probably already touched on these pretty well, but woody debris, those branches and things like that are really important for the stream. Kura need those branches, need the macrophytes, particularly the juveniles, but obviously stream maintenance happens. So just an example of sediment. So these are two rainfall sort of flows from the stream. The stream on the left is coming off the hills, so it's picked up a whole lot of loess or fine particulate sediment that is really hard to settle out, whereas the flatlands, you get this pretty, rain doesn't really affect it as badly. So just some examples of the rural land use. So there's, as I said, that flat land is pretty intensively used for a range of normal rural land uses, as well as houses being built around it. This is the photo we took in the weekend. So this is the stream, the Milnes Drain, and this has been opened up, and the farmer, I think it's actually probably not the landowner, it's the leasee, who's letting their cattle come in here and use the stream as a watering trough, to the stream's detriment, obviously. So there's increasing subdivision in the catchments, particularly on the Port Hills, Westmoreland, etc. So that's another layer of impact, particularly with the gradient and the flow off of those fine soils. When people live around streams, they want them to stay within their banks. So this is just another photo we took in the weekend of obviously the digger's been in there and it's moving and digging the spoil out, clearing willows, etc. So that's, again, a bit hard for the stream. There's no shade. There's little in-stream debris for animals to live around and on. The urban hill development. These are large developments, a lot of exposed land. This soil, once it's exposed and lacks any protection, is very mobile. Once it's in water, it just keeps on going and you can't drop it out. So, and that ends up in the stream. In this example here, this is actually coming down through about 800 metres of the stream reserve that the council owns. So it's left the developer's property and they're using the reserve as treatment in this case. And that's where it ends up going into the Kashmir stream, which we don't think is particularly suitable. Just some evidence of this. So this is, a small graph, but just concentrate on the dark blue line. This is the stream water clarity that actually in this case Gordon's measured. So starting here at 2011 going through up to the end of last year, There was a steady improvement in the clarity. Obviously, you get noise from the flood events, and that's this right-hand graph shows as soon as you get the rainfall off the Port Halls, you get turbidity, unfortunately. But anyway, so back to this story. So the earthquakes we've just drawn in there was maybe a sort of a short-term impact, but in terms on the clarity anyway. But it was going pretty well up to 2012 when the Westmoreland's stage 1 development, and now we've got stage 2 happening, hit in, and there's a step change in the clarity that we've picked up here, and to our mind we're now seeing a different state of clarity in the stream. So what have we done? Well, so we updated that action plan. I showed you those goals earlier. We've organised a community field trip, and we did some fishing in the stream just to show people what lived in the stream. We're doing increasing amounts of advocacy around the subdivision consents, rural land use and the stream maintenance. We're getting an increasing library of photos of good, bad and ugly. We now get regular emails about the increasing number of resource consents being lodged in the catchment. And we've expanded our monitoring network of water clarity, and we've helped train the community to share the load. We've got a fancy logo, courtesy we've got a cheap deal from EOS, as we should have. And we've got a regular newsletter we try and put out and stuff like that. Anyway, that's me. Thank you.
So our last presentation today is Helene Mortner from the Spraden Heathcote Community Board. So last year the board had a workshop on the Heathcote, and at the end had some discussion about the community aspirations. So that's what Helene is going to focus on today.
Yes, hi. As Chrissy said, I'm Helene Moutner, and I'm on the Spraden Heathcote Community Board. And we'll talk today about the community's involvement and actually the perspective of the river. Well, the Heathcote River, it springs both literally and figuratively from springs around the area, and it's not a mighty river, like the Nile or the Amazon, but it's a very charming river, and it's very important to the people in the area. As been talked about earlier, there have been multiple stresses that have been placed on the river, and this has affected the health of the river. And we can see that where invasive plants are choking parts of our river, and the sediment, and what Dave just talked about, that's the confluence of the Heathcote River and the Kashmir stream. And you can see the clear water on your left, which is the Heathcote River coming in, and the Kashmir stream with the sediment, and that was taken just last Saturday. And also the river is abused by dumping. There are, in that picture, tires and traffic cones in there. People have talked to us and said, when they were younger, they used to swim in the river, and there are parts of the river that just don't look good anymore. They're not healthy. So in response to that, along with Dr. Melanie Coker and I, my colleague on the community board, we organized a seminar last June. And we invited people from the community, residents groups, people who've had a long experience and interest in the river. We also had speakers talking about the history, community initiatives such as the Becknam Neighborhood Association, which did a very, very well done survey on the flooding at that time and studies of the river. We broke into workshops and asked people just to join the workshop that they were interested in. And we have received a lot of outcomes from the seminar, from the workshop. So basically, the feelings of the people were just what's up there. They want to correct the mistakes and neglect of the past, use the river and enjoy it now, not put it, on a mantle if you can, but actually use the river. But at the same time, we want to leave a legacy of an ecologically healthy river for the future. I said that the outcomes ran for several pages, and I can provide that, the responses from the people, but I'll just give a sort of a précis of what the comments from the community. One, of course, is health and safety concerns of the sewerage being discharged and the flooding, toxic materials, biological contaminants, all things that were talked about earlier. There's also a great social need that people like the river. They want to be part of it, they want to celebrate it, and it's just a very, very important, even just sitting and walking and enjoying it. But in the end, what people do want is an ecologically healthy river. And that's an eel, the eel on the bottom I just saw about 2 weeks ago. So I was sort of excited about seeing that. So it was nice to see that. One of our community board colleagues, Carolyn Pott, who served as a facilitator during the seminar, said, it would be good, let's ask people about places of the heart. What about the Heathcote River is important to them? So we came out with, so people had some wonderful, wonderful ideas about the river and more places of the heart. And since the water seminar, we've organized some walks with, actually, Katie Nemo organized a walk a couple of months ago, and there's another one that's happening in about 2.5 weeks' time. So again, I can provide information or speak to Katie about it afterwards. We've also tried communicating with the community through newsletters and setting up an email list. We've worked along with the Water Zone Committee and ECAN, looking at possible sites for plantings within to prevent sediment coming into the river. And other things that we're looking at doing is updating the river walking guide, more interpretation boards along the river so people could learn and understand about the river. And we're also involved in making connections with the other community groups that are sort of like-minded and share the concerns for the natural environment. In 1990, part of the sesquicentennial, there's a lot of plantings, and I participated in this. It was organized by Colin Merck. And this picture was taken just a week or two ago, so it's 25 years past. But even if this were taken, 10 years ago, or after the plants were planted 10 or 15 years, it was beautiful. And it kind of goes far back from the river, so not just along the river. And it just shows what can be done. And it can be done quickly. You don't have to wait generations. These things can happen very quickly. And one other thing, rivers, for some reason, maybe because we're human beings, are very important to people. And at times of stress and at times when you want a little bit of peace, you go to the river. And this was taken 2 weeks ago at the remembrance of the earthquakes. And when you want to do something nice, you want to put some flowers into the river. So I want to thanks to the Sprain Heathcote Community Board, Dr. Melanie Coker, who working on this project with me, the chair, Paul McMahon, and Carolyn Potter, the City Council staff, and certainly to the City Council, ECAN, and the Christchurch West Melton Water Zone Committee, to Katie Nemo for her enthusiasm, her ideas, and for organizing the river walks, and Richard Moram for his photos, and most especially to the people of the Sprain Heathcote and environs because of the respect and commitment that so many people have played to the river. Okay, thank you.